Alright guys, so what we're looking at today here is chapter 7.44, the last part of partial fraction decomposition. Now when we look at this here, this is really going to be kind of a combination of what we've been doing in 7.3 and 7.2 and 7.1, kind of a combination of everything we've been doing. Because when we look at this here, we are going to have our fractions. We're going to have several fractions. Now x squared is going to give us 2. We'll have 1 for x and 1 for x squared. The x squared plus 2 squared is going to give us 2, because we'll have 1 for x squared plus 2, and then we'll have 1 for x squared plus 2 squared. So in total, we will have 4 fractions. We'll have x squared plus 2, and x squared plus 2 squared. Now our letters, so this is going to be A, and this is going to be B, because we don't have a quadratic setup in the bottom. And even though you might say, well, x squared is a quadratic, really we just have x squared. We have 2 of them. So we don't really consider it to be a quadratic. Now x squared plus 2 is a quadratic, so we'll have cx plus d. And here we have another quadratic, so we will have ex plus f. So this time we're not just looking for 2 letters, we're actually looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different terms. Now I'm going to use the magic of copy and paste to bring this down here. Now what we're going to do next is going to be similar to what we've been doing through most of these chapters, where we're going to multiply by the greatest common denominator. So x squared times x squared plus 2 squared. And we're going to multiply everything by this. Squared times x squared plus 2 squared. X squared times x squared plus 2 squared, and x squared times x squared plus 2 squared. So now we'll cancel out or cross out things that are in common. Well, here everything is going to cross out. All of this is going to cross out here. Here we'll have this 1x is going to cancel out with one of them, so I'll still have 1. X squared and x squared is going to cancel out completely. X squared plus 2 and x squared plus 2 will cancel out with one of these here. And these here will cancel out completely. So when we look at this here, what we have left is on the left-hand side, we have 4x minus 8 is equal to, so we'll have a times x squared plus 2 squared plus b, well, also x times x as well. B, we'll just have our x squared plus 2 squared plus, and we'll have cx plus d times x squared plus 2. And this x squared plus 2 plus ex plus f times x squared. So we have all of this here. Now we need to simplify this here. Make this a little bit, try to make this a little bit smaller than how I wrote it the first time. A. Now the first thing we're going to do is x squared plus 2 squared. And if we multiply that out, I'm not going to go on and multiply it out here. I'm just going to write it down. What we end up getting is x to the 4th plus 4x squared plus 4 times x plus b. And again, it'll be the same, x to the 4th plus 4x squared plus 4 plus cx plus d. And when we multiply these two together here, we're going to get x to the 4th plus 2x squared. And we can go on and multiply these out and get plus ex cubed plus fx squared. And we get all of this here. And again, we're still simplifying this down. So here I'm going to have 4x minus 8 equals. So here we're going to have a. Now I've still got to multiply it through by x, so x to the 5th plus 4x cubed plus 4x plus b times, well, for b here, since this is already multiplied out, I'm going to multiply through by b. So bx to the fourth plus bx squared, 4bx squared plus 4b, plus we can distribute this out. So cx times x to the fourth is cx to the fifth plus 2cx cubed plus dx to the fourth plus 2dx squared plus e, ran out of room, so I'll write this down below, plus ex cubed plus fx squared. So we have all of this here. And lastly, we can multiply this through by a. So I get 4x minus 8 equals a x to the fifth plus 4ax to the third plus 4ax plus bx to the fourth plus 4bx squared plus 4b plus cx to the fifth plus 2cx to the third plus dx to the fourth plus 2dx to the third. Go back and make sure. So it's not to the third, this is to the second. Oh yeah, no, that should be to the third, that's right. This should be to the third, and this should be to the second, because again, cx. So we had next term, dx squared plus ex cubed plus f of x squared. Okay, so we have all of this written out. Now what we're going to do is combine things that are similar, because ax to the fifth, cx to the fifth, both of these are to the fifth power. Now I'm going to look for fourth power. So we have two things that are to the fourth power. Third power. So we have one there, one here, and one here. So we have three things that are to the third power. Now we're looking for squares. So I have one, let's see here, two, three things that are squared. Now to the first power we have one. There's only one thing to the first power. And then with no variable at all, we only have one. Now I could go and rewrite out this here, but what I'm going to do is just for simplification's sake, is I'm going to go on for these two here, since they both have an x to the fifth, I will factor it out, which will give us x to the fifth times a plus 2c. So I'm going to go on and group them together and factor it out. And it wouldn't be 2c, it'll just be c, a plus c. Because we have x to the fifth times a plus c. Plus, well, these two here both have x to the fourth, so I'll factor it out, which leaves us with b plus d for x to the fourth. So we have those two done. So we had our fifth that we combined, our fourth, so I'm going to put a little check mark just for me, for my own sake, because I'll do this just to make sure, okay, I've got those done. Now the next thing we want is thirds. So we have three of those. So I'm going to factor out x cubed from those, which will give us 4a plus 2c plus e for x to the third. So we got that one, and that one taken care of. Now I'm going to write this down below because I've run out of room. Plus now our x squareds. So we have three of those, these three here. So our x squared is going to be times 4b plus 2d plus f for our x squareds. Then we're going to add to it our last set of terms. So we have just ax, 4ax, so we don't really factor that out of anything, we just leave it alone, and plus 4b. b. So we have all of that done there. So we have all this here. I'm going to grab it and move it over just a little bit. Now on this side of the equation, really we don't have x to the fifth, fourth, third, second in here. They really don't show up. So really our x, we have 0x to the fifth. We have 0x to the fourth. 0x to the third and 0x squared are all here. They're just not written in. So when we match it up, well, this here is going to match up with our 0x to the fifth. This here is going to match up to our 0x to the fourth. The same with x to the third. Our x squared will match up with 0. Pick this color here. 4a to the x will match up with 4x. And last but not least, our 4b will match up with -8. So when we rewrite these back out, because we're going to have a few. Now I'm going to start with x to the fifth. Well, so a plus c equaled 0. With our fourth, it told us that b plus d also equaled 0. Then we saw that 4a plus 2c plus e equals 0. And we also have that 4b plus 2d plus f is equal to 0. Then we have 4a is equal to 4. And last but not least, we have 4b is equal to -8. Now 3 or 4 of these statements here we can't do anything with yet. These 4 here, there's nothing we can do with them yet, so I'm going to move them down here. But these 2 here, we can do stuff with. Because all of these here, we have 2 or more variables in them, so we really can't solve for any of these here yet. But 4a equals 4, well, I can divide both sides by 4 and get that a is equal to 1. So I can find that one. Here, I can divide both sides by 4 and get that b is equal to -2. So, okay, so we could solve for those 2 there, those 2 letters, and get values for them. Now we're going to use it to solve for the rest of them here. So we can use this on this one here. We'll have 1 plus c is equal to 0. So here I can subtract 1 from both sides and get c is equal to -1. Okay, now we're up to 3. Well, I know that b is -2, so -2 plus d equals 0. Here I can add 2 to both sides, and I get d is equal to 2. Now I'm up to 4, so when we look at this here, I have a, okay, I have c, and I can solve for e. So I have 4 times 1 plus 2 times -1 plus e equals 0. So that would be 4. 2 times -1 is -2 plus e equals 0. Well, 4 minus 2 is 2 plus e equals 0. So we can subtract 2 from both sides, and we get e is equal to -2. Okay, now we're up to 5 letters that we have solved. We just need one more. We need to solve for f. But I know what the value of b is for this equation here. It's -2. I know the value of d here is 2. Plus f is equal to 0. Well, 4 times -2 is -8. 2 times 2 is 4, so plus 4 plus f equals 0. -8 plus 4 is -4 equals f, or plus f equals 0. So we can add 4 to both sides, and when we add 4 to both sides, we get f is equal to 4. So we have this one here. Now I'm going to go on and grab these 2 here. and bring them down here. Don't need that. So these are all of our letters here. Now, if we remember back to what we started with, for this here, we had a over x plus b over x squared plus cx plus d over x squared plus 2 plus ex plus f over x squared plus 2 squared. Now we found the value of a to be 1. We found the value of b to be negative 2. We found the value of c to be negative 1, so we'll just write it as negative x. Found the value of d to be 2. Found the value of e as negative 2. And we found the value of f to be 4. And this right here, after all that work, is our final answer when we plugged back in for A, B, C, D, E, and F. And that's all we have to do for this problem here. This one right here, so this will be the last example problem for 7.44. Now this here is already factored, and the numerator is less than the denominator. The degree of the numerator is less than the degree of the denominator. And when we split this up, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 different fractions, because we're going to have x squared plus 1, and x squared plus 1 squared. A, B, cx plus d, and ex plus f. Now I'm not going to rewrite this out because, again, as we just saw, we're going to end up rewriting this stuff out a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything through by x squared times x squared plus 1 squared. 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 And lastly, x squared times x squared plus 1 squared. Now luckily for us here, this and this will cancel out completely. One of these x's will cancel out with one of them, so we'll still have 1. X squared and x squared simplify out. One of these will cancel out with one of these, and both of these will cancel out with both of these here. So what we're left with is x plus 5 is equal to ax times x squared plus 1 squared plus b times x squared plus 1 squared plus cx plus d times x squared plus 1 plus ex plus f times x squared. Now we're going to multiply through and simplify stuff down on the right side. So ax times, well, before we multiply through by ax, it's going to be multiplying x squared plus 1 squared. And when we do that, we're really just multiplying x squared plus 1 times x squared plus 1. And I will go on and just tell you that this is going to be x to the 4th plus 2 x squared plus 1. And this one here is going to be b times x squared plus, well, x to the 4th plus 2x squared plus 1 plus, here we're going to have cx plus d. And I'm just going to multiply these two here, which will give us x to the 4th plus x squared. And now this here we can just multiply together, so we'll get ex cubed plus f of x squared. plus 5. Now we can multiply through by ax. So ax times x to the fourth is ax to the fifth plus 2ax cubed plus ax. Multiply through by b, we get plus bx to the fourth plus 2bx squared plus b. If we multiply this together, we're going to get plus cx to the fifth plus cx cubed plus dx to the fourth plus dx squared plus ex cubed plus f of x squared. So that's multiplied all the way out. And again, kind of like the last one, I'm going to go on and combine our like terms. Well, our like terms, so our x to the fifth, we have it here, and we have it here, because both of these have x to the fifth terms. We have bx to the fourth here, and if we go through, we also have dx to the fourth. So we only have two that have x to the fourth. 2x to the third here, cx to the third, ex to the third. Our squares, we only have 1, 2, 3 of those. And then we just have 1a to the x, and finally, we just have 1b by itself. Now I'm going to group those together and factor out the like terms. So for the first thing, I'm going to factor out x to the fifth from the two that have it. And that's ax to the fifth and cx to the fifth. So if I factor ax or x to the fifth out of just these two, I'm left with a plus c, because that's the only two that I have left there. Now if I do this same thing, so we finished those. Now if I do the same thing for x to the third, so plus x to the third, so what I'm going to be left with is 2a plus c plus e. There. So we got those done. Now with our x squared, when we factor it out, so I'm going to be left with 2b plus d plus f for that one. So we finished those. And then we'll also have to the fourth. Well, as I'm looking at this here, I realize I left out x to the fourth. So I'm going to move these over, because we still need to do x to the fourth. Even though I skipped it, I can go on and we can go back and put that back in. Because our dx to the fourth and bx to the fourth, when we factor out the x to the fourth, we'll be left with b plus d. I did leave that out, but I went back, so we went back and got it. That's fine. Because again, that's why I put the check marks, just to make sure I'm keeping track of everything. And now we'll come back to our a, just x, so that's just plus ax. And then we have plus b. And now we can kind of match them up. Well, there's a few we don't have. And that's x to the fifth, which would be 0x to the fifth. We also have 0x to the fourth. And we have 0x cubed, 0x squared, and then we have our x and 5. So what that means for us is that when we match them up, so 0x to the fifth and x to the fifth times a plus c, it means for us that a plus c is 0. Our 0x to the fourth means that b plus d is equal to 0. Our 0x to the third means that 2a plus c plus e is equal to 0. And finally, for x squared, it means that our 2b plus d plus f is also equal to 0. So these four here are all equal to 0. But ax is equal to x, so a is equal to 1. Well, hey, we've already found one value. We found the value of a. Now b matches up with our 5, so b is equal to 5. They've already told us two of the values. We've already found two of the values. We found the values for a and b. Now we can use those to find the rest. Since we know a is 1, so 1 plus c is equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides, so we get c is equal to -1. So we found c. Now we know b is 5, so I have 5 plus d, we don't know what that is yet, is equal to 0. So I can subtract 5 from both sides, which tells me that d is equal to negative 5. We got that one done. Now it brings me to this next one here. I know a. I know the value of a, I know the value of c. So I can find the value of e. So that'll be 2 times 1 plus negative 1 plus e is equal to 0. So I have 2 minus 1 plus e equals 0. Well, 2 minus 1 is 1 plus e is equal to 0. So I can subtract 1 from both sides, giving me e is equal to negative 1. And last but not least, we can use this here. I know the value of b is 5. I know the value of d is negative 5. And I can solve for f. 2 times 5 is 10, minus 5 plus f equals 0. 10 minus 5 is 5, plus f is equal to 0. So we can subtract 5 from both sides. And we find out that f is equal to negative 5. So now we have found all of our letters we're looking for, so we can plug it back in. And to remember what we had to begin with, we had we had a over x plus b over x squared plus cx plus d over x squared plus 1 plus ex plus f over x squared plus 1 squared. And at this point here, we can go on and plug back in our values that we found. We found out that a was 1. Then we found that b was 5. We found out that c was negative 1, so we can just write it as negative x. We found out that d was negative 5, so I'm going to write it as minus 5. We found out that e was negative 1, so I can just write this in as negative x. And we found out that f was negative 5, so we can write this in as minus 5. And that right there is our answer for this one here. And that's all we have to do for this problem. And these are some of the guidelines that we have, and we've gone through almost every different possible example of these partial fraction decomposition. And so that is it for 7.44. Your assignment for this year is on page 508, problems 51 through 54.